Shabbat Shalom. I think you feel the passage of time most acutely when you have children, because even small amounts of time clock big changes in them. And so when large amounts of time pass, you're looking at a totally different person. 2 years ago, my son was 4. He was a little kid. He was a toddler, really. He was in pre-K. He loved watching Daniel Tiger cartoons, and he loved the water, but he couldn't swim, which was very nerve-wracking for me. And he said free instead of 3, which was really cute. And now he's 6. He's in 1st grade, so he's all about K-pop demon hunters. You know if you know. And he can dive to the bottom of the pool to get stuff, and he's always saying 6, 7, and I don't know what that means. One of y'all knows. You can tell me after services. In 2 years, my cute little Dave, he's not a toddler anymore. He's an elementary schooler. He has definite likes and dislikes and opinions and skills. He's a real kid-sized little person. And my daughter, 2 years ago, she wasn't even a thought. Think about your own life and all the people in it. Think about yourself. It's wild what can change in just 2 years. 2 years. It really is a long time. It was, I imagine, an eternity for the living hostages who were freed this week. The men, young mostly, some of them fathers, who missed most of their young children's lives. None of the freed hostages' children are more than a few years old today. So their mothers had to keep the fathers' memories alive with photos and videos. And all of those young men are someone's son, someone's grandson. People had to go through every single day wondering and worrying, is my son alive? Are they torturing him? Is he in pain? Is he crying out for me? As a parent or a grandparent, there is no greater pain than knowing your child is suffering and you can't stop it. I've watched those reunion videos. I've lost count how many times I've loved the parents and the siblings, wives and girlfriends, children, hugging these impossibly thin warriors. 2 years is a really long time. And as the stories begin to emerge of what they endured, their strength, the word warrior barely encapsulates it. Avinatan Or, the boyfriend of Noah Argamani, was rescued last June by the IDF. Who can forget that video of her screaming on the back of a motorbike, reaching out for her boyfriend while terrorists march Avinatan to Gaza? He lost 40% of his body weight. He was held in total isolation, and when he tried to escape, they chained him to a cage for a year. Ron Boslavsky was starved as well, but he was told by his captors, if you convert, we'll give you more food. He refused. But can you imagine the strength it takes to say no to that in those circumstances? There are so many of these stories of these young men's bravery, and you just know that they will never be the same. Their families will never be the same. They will heal, please God, quickly and fully, but they can't turn the clock back 2 years. They can't get those 2 years back. They can't undo all that pain and that suffering. And we can't get those 2 years back either. I was watching an interview in Israel, and this interviewer was asking just people on the street. It looked like it was Ben Yehuda. And he said, how do you feel about the end of the war and the hostage agreement? And this one young woman, the way she put it was like, everything. I'm very emotional. I'm very excited. Mitраgeshet me'od, she said. But at the same time, it's complicated because we kind of got used to it. We really got used to the war, she explained. It's really very joyful, I am, but we have to get used to a whole new reality. That's a nail on the head. And in the same, but also a very different way, we are not the same as we were 2 years ago. In some ways, better. And in other ways, We cannot unsee the posts. We cannot unread the articles blaming the entirety of the Jewish people, laying guilty charges at our feet, calling for punishment accordingly. We cannot unhear the words, the vile words from pundits and celebrities and government officials and friends, vilifying all of us for crimes concocted. Nothing will bring back the Jewish lives lost in the past 2 years to murderous anti-Semites at home, abroad. We cannot unknow the knowledge once gained. It changes us fundamentally. Tomorrow in the Torah, we're going to read about a tree, Eitz Hadat Tovara, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which God will tell Adam to not eat from. Ki b'yom achalta mimenu, from the very day you eat of it, mot yumat. Surely, God warns, you will die. But of course, if you'll recall, it doesn't seem to happen. Because Adam and Eve, they do eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And do they die? No, they don't. And the medieval Rabbi Nachmanides says it was not a literal death God was warning them about. Rather, now they would know. Now they would know about good and evil. As if to say, once you know how good and how evil the world really is, how good and evil the world really can be, there is no going back to not knowing. Your old self, in a sense, goes away. And who you are now, knowing what you know, this is who you are going forward. Because now you know how your friends really feel, who your friends really are. And it is at the same time so very painful to hear silence or violence from those you thought loved you and those friends whom you loved. And at the same time, so heartening to hear kindness and advocacy from friends in a time when it is not popular to advocate for the Jewish people publicly. Gam v'gam. You cannot unknow one without unknowing the other. And either way, here we are. Now you know the strength of your Jewish community, because we have been tested as we have never been tested before in our lifetimes. And we only have the reason to see that now because of the horrendous ordeal our people at home and abroad have been through. Would that I could take that knowledge away, if I could take that pain away too, because that is hard-won knowledge, but I can't. So here we are. Now you know the depths of your Jewish identity, how deeply you feel pride in your Judaism, because that is a gift that became yours at birth or conversion, and it has been tested as never before. And we have, I fear we will continue to be in a very precarious place as Jews in this world. It would almost be comical between the celebrities with their counterfeit keffiyehs and absolute silence on the ceasefire deal and all these supposed pro-Palestinian protesters who were screaming nonstop, ceasefire, 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 and are now screaming against the ceasefire. Because it's not ceasefire that so many of them desire, but liberation from the Zionist entity. There it is. Never mind the fact that actual Gazans flooded the streets singing and dancing, handing out sweets to celebrate the deal. Never mind the fact that Hamas promptly started publicly executing rivals and those who they say collaborated with Israel. Never mind that this is what Gazans themselves have wanted, because gosh darn it, it's just so convenient to have ammunition against the Jews of the world. And now we know. We live in a world where anti-Semitism does not need a polite, gauzy cover. Like so many hatreds, it can operate out in the open, and seeing it is something we can never forget. Yes, the world of today is a darker one, and it is a tougher one than the one we thought we lived in 2 years ago. We have all changed in immeasurable ways in this short but long period of time, and we can never go back to our old world or our old selves. But some things, they remain true 2 years ago and now. Because in November of 2023, the first time I spoke after October 7th, I stood here and I told you for the first time about my father's cousin, Udi, or Ehud Goldwasser, who was abducted from his tank into Lebanon in 2006, sparking the Lebanon War. I stood here and I told you how I am the proud daughter of parents and of aunts and uncles and grandparents and a great-grandmother who all made Aliyah in the 1970s. And how I was in Nahariya, Udi's hometown, when his body was retrieved during an exchange deal in 2008. I told you how I was so mystified then as this cynical teenager that I was. The Israeli public was hopeful that Udi and Eldad would walk off that truck until the very last moment, until the boxes were revealed, to then we knew what was true. But that was the only way Israelis knew how to be, and how we must be, and how we have to have hope, even just a spark in the darkest of times, because we cannot not hope. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. But I stood here, I told you, living through October 7th and its aftermath, finally I understood, after more than 15 years, finally I understood that hopefulness in the face of knowing how truly evil the world can be, because only when you see how dark the darkness is do you understand the need for the smallest spark of light. And so I stood here and I told you what I truly believed, be'emunah shlema, with full faith, that every hostage would one day return to their family. Because like every other Israeli, I had to believe that. And I still do. The past 2 years have wrought more pain than we thought possible to bear. It has been so much hard-won knowledge, but we have kept the hope alive. And even knowing what we know about the world now, we must keep on keeping that hope alive. That the remaining hostages' bodies be returned so their families can give them the dignity of a burial. We must keep on keeping the hope and faith in our Jewish communities alive, our faith in our Jewish identities, no matter who strikes at us next, because we have always outlived every one of our tormentors in every generation from time immemorial. We must keep on keeping hope alive, because no matter how many hits we take, no matter how many painful truths of the world we learn and relearn as the world turns, as always, as ever, Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel, will always live. Shabbat Shalom.